guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Elizabeth Tubajika, and thanks for logging back in. I took a while before I filmed this specific YouTube channel because I literally wanted to practice what I am preaching. And lately I went through a period of like just emotional exhaustion. And I wanted to share from that space, but I also wanted to apply what I know is relevant for speaking and actually applying from that space. So I'll actually be talking about emotional regulation, emotional exhaustion in the upcoming episodes. But today I actually wanted to discuss a specific topic that's really near to my heart because it is really where I am. If you've kind of been following my journey, you know I'm a mom who's really navigating this journey of motherhood, and I'm very much focused on mental health and self-development. And these past 2 weeks, parenting has been very, very difficult. I know as parents, very often we tend to want to be the fixers of everything, and I am going to do a 2-part series on this specific topic. I've been thinking very much so in the realm of the character and legacy I want to leave my child. And anxiety and survival mode and depression is definitely not one of them. I read this quote. It was actually from a book, I believe, but it basically said that the best gift any parent can give their child is their own happiness. He or she, dad or mom, their own happiness. And if you're African like me, or if you come, heck, I don't even want to say African. I think anyone can really relate to this, especially as mothers. We tend to identify with our success as mothers on how much we sacrifice ourselves, how much we burn ourselves out just to all in the name of parenthood. You know, and I as an African woman, as a Congolese woman growing up in this culture, that was a lot of the narrative that I saw is a mother sacrifices. Yes, she sacrifices, but she should sacrifice out of conviction, not obligation, right? She should sacrifice because she understands what that is, but she should not sacrifice at a default to herself. So today I want to talk about that very quote and how we can dissect it. And I would like to talk about that on the next episodes, because there may be some mothers who are or women who are just on this journey where you feel like you might be a mother, or you're struggling with motherhood or whatnot. But this quote that actually says the best gift you can give your child is a happy version of you does not necessarily talk about, for me at least, does not really mean, or is not really talking about these superficial things of what a happy version of you looks like. It's literally, to me specifically, where I am is spiritually, emotionally, financially, mentally, the happy version of me. And what is a happy version of me? Because honestly, children do not model what we say. They don't imitate what we say. They model what we do. And I had a specific situation this week where, man, just these past 2 weeks, being emotionally exhausted, being emotionally drained. It's that very quote that got me back into sharing this with you guys, is asking myself, like, what am I teaching my son, and what am I modeling my son? I don't want to go into too much details of what I've been experiencing in the past 2 weeks, but a lot of that involved anxiety. I know the importance of, I don't want to say the importance, I know the impact of trauma and generational trauma. And these days, that very concept has made me more mindful of how I show up as a mom. We all have challenges as parenthood. I'm a mom, a child who has special needs. We all have our challenges as mothers in general. I sometimes get together with my friends and we talk about these challenges. Everyone has challenges. One of my goals as a mom lately is really just being mindful of how I'm modeling parenthood, how I'm modeling adulthood. And I'm not saying it's easy, right? Because children don't always understand the challenges and sacrifices parents have to go through, but this is just a food for thought for moms, parents everywhere. How can you show up as a happier version of you so that you can model that for your children? And I do have a question for you. What are some things that you have seen in your parents that were modeled in a positive way? And what are some things that were modeled in a negative way? I'm in a place where I am starting to realize that it's not about perfection. It is about intentionality. And the only way we can do that as parents in being intentional on how we show up is to start with the end in mind. What are some of the things how are some of the ways that you show up? What are some of the traumas you're still kind of unconsciously manifesting? For me, anxiety has been something that I have struggled with, and I'm glad with therapy. I'm back in therapy, but I'm glad that with therapy, with being mindfulness, with doing this work on showing up here on YouTube and watching my own videos and learning from my own videos and making sure that I'm showing up in a space of accountability kind of helps me in this journey and saying, Liz, you talked about this. How do we grow from this? So I want parents to start with the end of mind. Let's be very mindful in our parenting. Not perfect. Let's be mindful. So I realized that my child, just like me, is going to have to go through these seasons and deal with life's hardship on his own. Sometimes there's some struggles that he's just going to have to walk on his own. And as a parent, I'm there to guide them. But your child doesn't need you to always be the fixer. Your child needs you to be the healthy version that you need to be so you can model what healthy looks like. I've realized what I really want to model for my child is emotional stability and resilience. Emotional stability, emotional regulation to be specific, and resilience in faith, in life, in dreams, in pain. How can I model that for him? How can I show him mom is happy? Mom made a mistake, but she owns up to it. Mom is really having a hard time. Mommy's grieving. But mommy seems to grieve but still get up, because it's important for them to also see you go through these things. They need to know what your process is for grief. They need to know what your process is for making mistakes. They need to know what your process is for messing up. Just a month ago, and I remember I texted my sister saying, I feel so bad, I yelled at my son. I yelled at my son out of just frustration, but he didn't know any better. And if you guys come from my culture, parents, their way of apologizing is not always verbal and is not always validating, right? It's kind of like you get yelled at, probably it was unreasonable, and then they come back and it's just like, or give you a candy or start talking to you or do things that make you show here unconsciously, okay, they know they messed up, whatever. But let's model healthy conflict management. Let's model accountability. Let's model being able to say sorry when we mess up. And let's not be so afraid of messing up, because messing up itself and being so caught up in being perfect as parents or a perfect person is a flawed demonstration. So now when you show up as a parent, like, what do you want them to model? I'm in a place where I want him, even though he's still young, like when I yelled at him, I felt the conviction, and I'm learning to listen to that conviction that that was not right. I went to him and I sat down and I said, I'm so sorry mommy yelled at you. You didn't deserve that. I'm sorry, okay? He laughed at me, looked at me, and just laughed at me. But, and hugged me. And then you see just how innocent and loving that they are. But let's not take that for granted. Let's teach our kids accountability. Let's teach our kids stability. And I'm going to have a part two to this coming up soon. But I wanted to share that, like, let's teach our children emotional regulation. Let's teach them having fun. Let's teach them not always being on survival. Let's teach them how to be content. Let's teach them that sometimes life will throw hardships at us. Let's teach them how to still move on even when we do have that. And this is a self-reflection for me. Um, one of the decisions I made is to always take accountability, because I've been in experiences where I see how lack of accountability can really hurt relationships, and especially amongst parenting. Um, you know, my culture in general. It's just, or I would say even the Black culture, right? The thing is, it's because I said so, right? It's this thing that if you're older, that you can just say so. Um, but let's take accountability. Let's model positive behaviors for our children. And even if it's hard and we're still figuring things out as human beings, and we're parenting in the midst of going through life, in the midst of going through emotional instability, going through economic crisis, national instability, like just everything going on in this world. Like, our children are not learning from the world in that aspect. They mostly are watching us. They are paying attention. They are watching us. And now I'm more mindful of that. I'm on this journey in just motherhood and mental wellness. And a topic that I want to also bring up in the future is just generational trauma, and thinking with the end of mind, right? Like, what are some things that my child can unlearn from my experience? Psychologists, children's psychologists will always say, like, make sure you have a safe environment. Create a safe environment the first 3 years of your childhood, of your child's life. The first 3 years of my child's life was really not safe. A lot went down. It was grief. It was relocation. It was a lot, health issues, etc. So I'm mindful of that. So I want to share this with the parents, that it's not about perfection, right? It's not about being the perfect parent, but how can we start parenting with the end of mind, and being self-aware of our flaws, and paying attention when our children are modeling that. Maybe some of those things that you don't like in your child, that you're always yelling at them, they're getting it from somewhere, and it's most likely mom or dad, and then friends. But when they're so young, it's most likely us. But that's what I wanted to talk about today. How can we practice parent mindfulness? This was my motivation. This was my why this week, when I was so focused on fixing issues, issues going on with my child, issues going on in life. And I didn't stop to think that, like, how can you become a happier version of you? How can you be a better you that models wholeness for your child? not perfection. So you're struggling with these things in life, but how can you be better at regulating your emotions? Let let them see you hurt. Let them see you cry. Let them see you have pain, but let them also see that healthy process on how mom and dad recovers from pain. How does mom um, handle stress? Because you're modeling that for them, and you're probably modeling also the type of partner they may also want. I have a son, and I'm mindful of that. And my goal, as I mentioned, is modeling positive emotional regulation for my son and resilience. I want him to have that. And so now, because of the thinking with the end in mind, I have to become a mentally tough person. I have to. I have to. I have no other choice. I need to be that person because I want him to become that person, right? So we can't ask for kids to become people that were never modeled in their house. And we take the good and bad of what we learned as children. One thing that my parents passed down to me that is valuable, that is intergenerational blessing, is faith. For me, it's their resilience in faith, um, in believing in God and serving Him. And I also have to create my own intergenerational wealth for my child, and I want him to be mentally tough. I want him to be resilient, and I want him to have emotional regulation. And mom and dads, it starts with us. It starts with us. So that's what I wanted to share. Please share this with your friends. Share this with your parents. This is not necessarily focused on females. This is also male. Let's practice mindful parenting. So that's all I wanted to share. Thanks for locking in, and make sure you share, like, and subscribe. All right.